It is time for Around the 412 with Smitty and Tyler.
Welcome back to another episode of Around the 412. I'm Tyler. With me, as always, is my co-host Smitty. Go follow us on all of our social medias at Around the 412. They're down on the ticker right now. Go check us out on all of those. Also, while you're there, go check out our show's description. We've got Everything Custom Designs Facebook link. It's our friend Haley Wagner's small business that she does customized clothing for. And also, we talked about this on the Pirate Show, but as of just a couple days ago, she announced that she is able to do customized. They were called tumblers. They're like made out of glass. They have cups, lids, and straws and everything. But also in that post, I didn't read the small print. She can also do mugs, shot glasses, wine glasses, and sippy cups.
Wow.
So go check out Everything Custom Designs. Get some customized clothing. Grab your customized Around the 412 merch and get your customized tumbler. Get you ready for this upcoming football season because this is the Around the 412 Steelers show.
Bang. Sponsored by TH Barbershop. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see the logo above Tyler, or at the ticker, you always see it as well. TH Barbershop, located at 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Again, TH Barbershop, 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2, Beaver, PA. Old school vibe. Christian, Tony, Ashley, they do a great job over there. Been getting my hair cut since it opened. Different location than where it was originally, but great space. If you go and get your haircut there, promise you won't want to go anywhere else. I make the joke that if you are an out-of-towner and get your haircut there, you might end up moving here just to continue to get your haircut at Keats Barbershop. Let's get into it. We got questions from Twitter to talk about here. The Steelers have made some recent transactions to talk about, so I'm excited for this episode. Let's dive in. Ross says, Steelers, what receivers would you draft in round 1 or 2? The interesting thing here for me is I think that they've made it clear that they're going to draft a receiver. But if you look at the guys that they've been interested in terms of like top 30, kind of follow the pro day visits they've had, it's day 2. Like, I don't think that they're going to take one at 20. They weren't at LSU today for Brian Thomas Jr. They weren't at Texas for like Adonai Mitchell. They're in the Ricky Parasol, Malachi Corley, like those types of range, which is, round 2. I think 51 definitely makes a lot of sense for a receiver.
Isn't Washington? I was say, isn't Washington's pro day tomorrow? As of recording this, it's March 27th. Recording this, so Washington's pro day is happening on Thursday. We'll see if the Steelers are there.
I'm skeptical. I'll say that, because now even if they are, though, there's a tackle prospect that is there. Trey Fontenot.
Yeah, that's true.
So they could be there, and people think, oh, they're sending their top brass to watch the receivers. I wouldn't be so sure based off, the interest that we've seen in tackles, Amarius Mims, Talise Fuaga. Like, they've shown interest in a lot of top tackles. Your boy's rising, by the way, too.
Jalen McMillan.
No. The tackle out of BYU.
Oh, my boy. I thought you were talking, we were talking about Washington. So
let me take a crack at this, and I'm sorry if I offend.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Kingsley Suamataia.
You're pretty close. Honestly, you are pretty close. If a Polynesian guy heard that, I don't think he'd be offended. It's Kingsley Suamataia.
Kingsley Suamataia. Okay.
Suamataia.
Okay.
Yeah, but just smoother. Kingsley Suamataia.
Right. Okay. Got it. Because I better get that down, because I think there's a chance he goes back into round 1. I'm seeing a lot of smoke for him getting a lot of top 30s. We'll see if he gets invited to the draft.
Super athletic. I just like I've said, I hope whatever team drafts him, they're sticking him at right tackle and not left tackle. I think he definitely perform better on the right side of the football.
But yeah, the receiver stuff, I think round 2 is probably where they're going to be looking. In terms of that, I mentioned the names. Ricky Parasol is a huge target for me. I think Zach Asani loves him. Which is big. Like, Zach Asani got brought in here. I think that they're going to start targeting specific types of receivers. Malachi Corley, Zach Asani was at the pro day. They're bringing him for top 30. A lot of Deebo Samuel to his game. I know a lot of people were kind of wondering, like, I actually put the post up, was like, I think Malachi Corley could be Arthur Smith's Cordarelle Patterson, and then they signed Cordarelle Patterson to be Cordarelle Patterson. But I still think Malachi Corley could make sense. I don't think that it's like total redundancy to have them both on the roster. And adding soon like 33-year-old Cordarelle Patterson to the roster shouldn't preclude you from taking a guy. So those would be my top two. Roman Wilson feels like he could be a Steeler as well. Xavier Legette, they've had interest
I like
in.
Roman Wilson fits the mold that they're trying to go with a receiver as well.
Yeah, like the blocking, like the willingness to still stay engaged when you don't have the football in your hands.
Basically the opposite of what the receivers were. Let's just say that.
Yeah, that's why I say like I think they're going to start targeting a different type of receiver. But to your point, we don't know yet about the Washington receivers.
Yeah, I mean we'll know as of the 28th of March, so that may have passed whenever you actually it's definitely going to pass when you're listening to this because this is coming out after the Pirates show. It's opening season or opening day for baseball. But I mean Jalen Polk, Jalen McMillan. I mean I've told you several times Jalen McMillan was my guy. I think that he would be a good pick.
I like both of them, man.
I like both of them.
Obviously,
any of the Washington receivers would be good.
We love Rome Odunze, but that ain't happening. I do appreciate the fact that they showed interest in him. I mean, might as well do due diligence. Like, even if it's not for now, right? You just never know what's going to happen. Like, this is why you do due diligence on Justin Fields back in 2021, because you never know what's going to happen. So we'll see. But obviously, I don't think he's going to be within striking distance for them coming out into the draft, but maybe, on a second contract or something. That's why they do this. But the other two guys, Jalen Polk and Jalen McMillan, definitely could make sense on day two. So there's some guys for you. There's plenty more out there. Zach Celedonia, am I annoying? Sometimes. But one of my favorite accounts on the app. Connor says, with center, tackle, receiver, and corner dominating the conversation, do you think defensive line is falling under the radar as the remaining needs? Solid unit for now, but no real future beyond Benton. Hey, you're preaching to the choir here. I mean, Cam Hayward, last year of his deal, obviously, we don't know what that's going to look like. Larry Ogunjobi, in my opinion, did not live up to the first year of that 3-year contract, and I'm not even sure why he got a new 3-year contract based off how year one went for him. And then you got like depth guys. I like bringing Monty Adams back. I think he's a solid player. Isaiah Loudermilk, DeMarvin Leal. They just brought in Dean Lowry. Yeah, defensive line is still certainly a need. They need a future piece to add there to go with Keanu Benton for the future of this defensive line. How early will they do it? No clue. But I do agree. I think with everything else kind of dominating the conversation, it probably is flying a little bit under the radar. I just don't think it has for the two of us. Like, we continuously talk about the need for the defensive line.
Yeah, not even just this past season, but I feel like not even just last season or the season before. I feel like for the past 3 or 4 seasons, I have said going into the draft that defensive tackle is always a sneaky need for the Steelers. Not necessarily because they need a starter, but I always think they need more depth of position. And now when you're at the point where some of your starters are getting ready to retire from the NFL, you're going to need to restructure that defensive line. And so, yeah, definitely it's being blown under the radar. I feel like definitely by the fan base as well. And it's probably too because it's not necessarily the sexy pick. It's all not necessarily the sexy player to look at in terms of like who they're drafting. Because even you always hear like described as like the linemen are not the sexy pick. But I feel like, in my opinion, in this year's draft, taking one of the top two centers or taking a tackle is definitely way sexier than taking a defensive tackle to at least to the fan base. And so I feel like that's why it just kind of gets brushed under the rug a lot of the time, because not only have you gotten good play out of Cam Hayward and you got good play out of Keanu Benton last season, and it's just reliable, but the position itself, at least when you're speaking of fans specifically, it's not a pick that people just necessarily think of all the time as far as what your needs are, because it's just not a sexy position to think about.
Let's think back to just last year. They draft Keanu Benton. How many people in the fan base knew who Keanu Benton was? And then look at what he went out and did in his rookie year. I think most people were like,
literally, I thought in my head just now, the two of us did, because we both said he felt like a Steeler.
Sure. But like, he got, Filipponi tweeting out that the pick was a C-. Like, based off what? Like, I guarantee you had no clue.
Keanu Benton was literally someone that we said could sneak into the back of the first round.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, we both thought it was a good pick at the time, and it aged well in year one. But Yeah, I think that the need is certainly there. I don't know that they hit it very early. I think that they'll add somebody to that unit. I don't know that I expected it. But you've seen them show some interesting guys early. Darius Robinson, who's another tweener, which I'm kind of worried about just because of how the Marvin Leal stuff has went. But like, man, there are certainly guys that I think could entice them to do it early. Braden Fiske, they had a top 30 with. Huge fan of his. So we'll see how that works out. But appreciate the question, Connor. Nick just said no. Thanks, Nick. Appreciate that. Neil said, do you see the Steelers prioritizing interior or exterior offensive line or both in the draft? Both.
Both.
Yeah.
This answer is the answer is tough without seeing how the board's falling.
I do think it's going to. I think it could be the first two picks. Like I mentioned,
Yeah,
I think they definitely check receiver before day 2 ends, but they have 2 third rounds as well, and I think that they could use one of those on a receiver. Slot corner still in need. We're not through free agency yet. There still could be another addition there that kind of changes how we view the draft. But as we sit here right now, I expect both. I mean, we've seen the interest in the top tackles of the class, and they don't have a starting capable center on the roster. In my opinion. So I think they need to check both those boxes as we sit here right now in the draft. I think what I will say about tackle is I don't think that they're locked into taking one for a specific side. I think they could take either a left tackle or a right tackle, but they definitely need one, and they also need a center.
Let me think, or let me see what you have in this take. I think that if they draft center first, it is less likely that they'll take a tackle with their second pick than if they take a tackle in the first round. I think it's more likely that they'll take a center in the second round. Like if they take a center first, just looking at the way the tackle class is, how it's going to be, I feel like a lot of the best guys are going to be before their second round pick. And so
yeah,
I think it's more likely that if they take center at 20, then they're probably looking like corner or something, or maybe even wide receiver at 51. But if they take tackle at 20, I still think there's a chance they still go center in the second round.
I'd have to agree. And I think the thing is, because if you take tackle at 20, that guy's going to play over Dan Moore at some point for sure in year 1, even if it's not right out of the gate. If you wait until 51 for a tackle, I mean, I know Steelers fans probably aren't going to want to hear this, but like good chance Dan Moore starts most of, if not the entire season, in my opinion. Yeah. From a talent perspective and also just a developmental perspective of whoever the talent is that you're getting at 51. Because you're probably talking about like a Patrick Paul or somebody of that ilk at tackle. So
I mean, don't get me wrong. From a bias perspective, if they take a center and then Kingsley Suamataia is still sitting there at 51, I'm all for taking a tackle. But yeah. I also think that if you take Kingsley Suamataia, Dan Moore is still going to be your opening day starter, and I don't know how long it's going to take for Kingsley to take him over, but I still think that's more of a developmental tackle than a guy that you're going to plug and play at the NFL level. So
yeah,
I think if you're looking for a starting tackle to take over, you're definitely taking that first.
Yeah, it's hard for me to envision them getting a starting tackle at 51, like right out of the gate. So I agree with that take. If it's tackle in the first round, heightens the chances that it's for sure center in round 2. If they go center round 1, I think it could be a variety of positions at 51. So certainly on board with that. And I don't know how this closed out, but Danny says, why are the Steelers waiting until the last minute to opt on Najee's 5th-year option? I think that so we kind of touched on this, I believe. Mm-hmm. The only thing that I can think of is maybe they're working on some type of extension. I don't know, because I'm with you. I'm not sure why it hasn't been picked up yet. Fully expect it to be picked up. Not sure what the timing of things is. And again, they're kind of going through a bunch of different things right now. Obviously, they just were at owners' meetings. They're kind of in the middle of pro days and stuff like that. So maybe they're just waiting for like some type of down period to actually like get this done. So between maybe just the timing of things, but also with them potentially working on an extension, those are the only 2 things I can think of. I'm not at all sitting here worried about the idea of them picking it up. I think it's a no-brainer that they're going to. There's not a doubt in my mind that they're going to. What the reason is that they haven't yet, I have no clue.
I agree, and I reiterate everything that you just said. I think that it could just be an awkward time with the busyness of this season, this pre-draft season. and pro days and everything like that. And I do think that could be an extension on the way. I mean, we talked about what our ideal is, and I think it makes sense for what the Steelers, how they're constructed right now, specifically offensively. There's not a lot of leadership on that side of the ball. Najee is one of those leaders. He's been productive for you, and it's kind of in that gray area where if you get rid of Najee, then I mean, and truthfully, I always say like running backs are a dime a dozen, but if you get rid of Najee, you're kind of taking a gamble on whoever you bring in to be your 1B to Jaylen Warren's 1A, because as much as a lot of Steelers fans wanted to see Jaylen Warren be the number one running back, I think we saw literally at times last year that he is not always the running back that fans think he is, and he can struggle. He's allowed to struggle. I mean, that's allowed of him. So I think that it would be good for the Steelers offense to be able to get that contract done. So maybe that is the case of what they're doing and having an extension, because they're a good duo. And I think that they see that, and especially with the way that the Arthur Smith offense is going to be more ground and pound, and then even I think a Matt Canada offense was going to be used to. So I think that that's probably the only things that makes sense. But he's definitely going to be picked up no matter what, whether they buy it out with an extension or they just pick up the 5th-year option. It's going to happen.
Here's my trepidation in terms of the extension is, if you remember a couple years ago, like when the running back market was so depreciated, Saquon Barkley was going through like his tag situation, and the running backs all had that Zoom meeting. And we're talking like Najee was like vocal about that. So like, I think he's going to try to do right by the running back market. I think he's going to try to do very well for himself, as he should. I mean, get every penny that you can. I don't know how the negotiation's going to go with the Steelers. Omar Khan specifically being a cap guy, understanding the value of each position. I'm interested to see how that goes. But like, if Najee's trying to be towards the higher end of running back pay scale here, I don't know that that's going to come in Pittsburgh. So like, I'm very curious what that's going to be like. I know that they like him. I think he's a good football player. I just think they're probably going to have a very strict cap of what they're willing to spend on him. And we will see if his thought is in line with that.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's not even something that really came into my mind that he could be trying to just really cash out instead of in a market for running backs.
It very much, at the forefront of the running back market stuff when that was all going on. A couple of years, Austin Eckler obviously was involved with that too. So, I don't know. Stewman86 says JPJ or Mims at 20.
Again, it's really up to preference. It's really up to priority of what you think. If it's up to me, I mean, I got to add like an asterisk on it. It's like, if I can take Mims and still know that I'm going to get Zach Frazier in the second round, then that's a different story. But like, I feel like if I got to pick one of those guys, especially for positional need, as of right now, you have a day one starter. If the season was going to start as of right now, you do not have a starting center. And so to me, I'm taking not Joey Porter Jr. Jeez.
I mean,
Jackson Powers Johnson. I'm taking the other JPJ, because you don't have a starting center right now. And it's looking like, I think you even tweeted this, like, at what point do the Steelers just get to like bringing back Mason Cole? Because if they don't get one of those guys in the draft, something's got to give. You do not have a starting center, but you do have a starting tackle. Whether you like that starting tackle or not, that's a different question. But you do have a starting tackle. I'm going JPJ.
There's like 2 free agent centers out there that I'd take over Mason Cole at this point. Brian Allen and Nick Gates, and that's it. Like everybody else, I think Mason Cole, bringing him back, just because there's the familiarity there and everything, would be a better option than them. So I don't know. As far as this is very tough. I mean, Mims to me only played 8 games. If he had more tape, because of how good the tape is, I think he could be the number 2 tackle in this class. And that to me is obviously more valuable than center. I hear for sure what you're saying. Like right now, they would be starting Nate Herbig at center if the season started right now. I'm just hopeful that changes, whether it is in round 2 or somebody else being added. So just because I'm making a selection right here, I'm going with Amarius Mims, because I think you got a decade-long tackle. And I think Jackson Powers Johnson's probably a decade-long center, but it's just the positional value for me. I'm having a tough time with doing my tackle rankings. Joe Alt's number 1. I think he's unbelievable. Very clean prospect. Between Fashanu, it's Fashanu, by the way. I've been saying Fashanu most of this time. It just recently got corrected by somebody that it is Fashanu. So I'm gonna be sure to continue to say that going forward. Between Fashanu and Mims, I'm having trouble. A struggle between 2 and 3. That's how good I think Mims was when he played. Again, just 8 starts. But I'm a believer, and yeah, I slightly lean Mims just because of that. And I fully hear your argument. I think it makes sense. Hopeful that they find center somewhere else, whether it is Brian Allen, Nick Gates. Heck, again, I would take Mason Cool back at this point, or a center in round 2.
Yeah, my gut call right now is that they don't take center round 1. They're gonna take. I mean, I think they'll either take.
To this point, the interest hasn't been there. Like they weren't at Jackson Powers.
The interest hasn't been there. But you know there was no interest in Kenny Pickett either. But they took him round 1. But they didn't need the interest because they were right next to him. But what I was gonna say is I just outside of the interest, I feel like the fact that, and we kind of joke about it too, but like the fact that Jackson Powers Johnson plays at Oregon and he's all the way on the West Coast, and Zach Frazier is practically in your backyard in West Virginia. I feel like those things are things that probably shouldn't make or break a pick, but I think with the Steelers they do, if that makes sense.
I can't disagree there. And this one was one that we could have brought up on any show, but we'll bring it up on here. Nick says, thoughts on pineapple on pizza? I'll give you the floor.
Well, I already know that I have a different answer than you. You've been very adamant about pineapple on pizza. I'm fine with it. I'm not one that hammers down the table saying that it needs to be on pizza. But I am a pineapple on pizza enjoyer. I do like the occasional Hawaiian slice. But I think that I think that it's for me, it personally, it's more of a mood thing. I'm not gonna always get it. There's definitely pizzas I prefer over pineapple on pizza, but if it is available, I don't stick up my nose at it. I think it's still fine pizza.
So I've eaten it before. I don't think and I don't even think it tastes bad. For me, it's just hard to wrap my mind around the idea of it even being a thing more than anything else. Like, who was the first person that was like, I'm going to put this tropical fruit on this dough, sauce, and cheese?
Like I tell you, it wasn't a Hawaiian because it's very much not. It's not a Hawaiian thing. It's just Hawaiian because it's a pineapple.
Yeah, right. So, that's more my thing anyway. Like it's a weird creation to me more so than it actually tasting bad. From a taste perspective, like it's fine. I would never order it. If for whatever reason it was the only thing there, I could eat it. I have eaten it. I just don't get the concept of it to begin with.
I will say, and I believe this is at Papa John's, I believe. They do have a Hawaiian barbecue chicken pizza. So it's the barbecue chicken and it has pineapple on it. That is my favorite version of pineapple on pizza. I prefer that over just like the pineapple and ham that is traditional.
I feel like I could get behind that. I mean, you're including a lot more there. There's a lot more stuff going on there. I'm a barbecue chicken pizza. Count me in. So yeah. I don't know that.
You need a barbecue chicken pizza or a buffalo chicken pizza. Hit up Smitty. He knows what he's doing. He made me several pizzas back in the day.
Yeah, and you know what? So I've gotten pretty close to being able to replicate them too. Because for people that don't follow me for whatever reason on social media as well, last summer or last spring, I got a pizza oven. So I started making my own pizzas here, calzones here, and yeah, we can do some things. So,
speaking of which, my mom was like, "Does Smitty cook a lot?" Yeah, because she sees all your pictures on Facebook, I think.
Yeah. I think that was our last question. So yeah, just want to kind of recap what's happened recently now with the Steelers since the last time we talked. We've been talking a lot about the receiver room. And they've made some additions to that, but like that big splash that we've been talking about hasn't come, at least as of yet. And maybe it isn't. They've added Van Jefferson, Quez Watkins, and I'm not considering him a receiver. Don't know how many times he's actually going to line up in that role. But Cordarelle Patterson, very interesting add in my opinion, something we should have seen coming with the Arthur Smith. I mentioned him as a potential free agent signing because of having Arthur Smith here. This clearly shows that he's having some influence in the personnel, by the way. Artie Smith it means business. He's coming here and they're letting him get his hands on the roster as well. But, basically 2 hours after the league changed the kickoff role, they were like, yeah, let's go get Cordarelle Patterson in here since they changed the kickoff role and this is going to be brought back into the league now. I love the addition of him. Just don't know how much it moves the needle for me in terms of a big splash for the offense. And certainly Quez Watkins and Van Jefferson are not doing that. And I want to get your opinion on this because Alan and I agree a lot. People that watch Steelers Afternoon Drive will tell you they think that I just like I'm a yes man for Alan and agree with everything he says. But we're not in lockstep on this because he thinks that this totally precludes them from adding another receiver until the draft. My thought process with these guys was Van Jefferson is a Allen Robinson replacement. That's your primary blocking receiver. I think he fills that role fine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually not sure that Quez Watkins and Calvin Austin both make the roster. I think those two guys are very similar, and I think that they're fighting for that one spot to be like that speedster, Khalif Raymond type that I've brought up in the past of Arthur Smith's offense.
Yeah.
And we didn't see it the same way in terms of these additions. Where are you at with this wide receiver room right now?
I don't think it takes them out of the wide receiver market before the draft. I don't see how it is right now that you would feel comfortable with that being the case, because if you look at the way that it's constructed right now, and then you say, yeah, we'll add somebody in the draft and then we'll feel good. I don't feel that way, because a draft guy, as much as the pedigree you want it to be good, you have no idea what they're going to actually be in the NFL. And so I don't feel comfortable with that. And so I don't think that takes them out of the market. I would agree more with you than I would with Alan. I think that they still need to add one of those bigger fish or make a bigger splash. I mean, even right now, and this is somebody that could be your wide receiver 2, 3, whoever, but you said the contract was on the table. We're still in a waiting game with them. I feel like Tyler Boyd would even feel like such a bigger addition than some of the other ones that we've gotten the last week or so. And so even something like that, I think, would be a bigger splash than what we've been or what, not necessarily what we were expecting, but what we've gotten so far. It would be more intriguing of a signing for your wide receiver room. I don't see any of these guys as really necessarily big contributors next season. I think that, you said, Cordarelle Patterson, he might be like a kick return specialist, occasionally get on an offense. Van Jefferson, I really just don't see him having a huge role in the offense. Like you mentioned that he could be the Allen Robinson replacement, but think back to Allen Robinson last season. I almost forget that he was even a Steeler. So if that tells you anything, he's not going to really be doing much on the field. And then Quez Watkins, you kind of hit the nail on the head. I think that him and the Calvin Austin are pretty similar to each other. Might not be room for both of them on the roster. I don't see a way that you feel comfortable going into the draft with this wide receiver room the way it is. I think that you have to add another one, and maybe the hopes of trading for Brandon Ayuk or something like that are gone. But I still think a Tyler Boyd signing, if that's still on the table, that still vastly improves your wide receiver room that for right now what it is than what it could be if you're only relying on a draft prospect. And if you sign somebody like that or trade for somebody like that, that doesn't take you out of the wide receiver market for the draft. I think that that's just improving your wide receiver room going into the draft. So I would agree with you. I think that they're still in the market for a wide receiver. I'm still waiting for one of these bigger fish to fall, because the signings have been fine, but underwhelming for what I would have expected at some of the skill positions.
Yeah, I mean, so we were all in agreement then about them drafting one. Like that, in my opinion, is certainly happening. It's just, are they going to sign another one at some point as well? I would like to think it's still on the table. My guy, I would have loved Josh Reynolds. He just went 2 years, $14 million to the Broncos. Man, I would have loved that deal for the Steelers. But, the more and more that we sit here, I don't know what Tyler Boyd is looking for. I mean, I know he was looking for a multi-year deal within $7 to $8 million. So basically what Josh Reynolds signed for, $7 million per. I don't know. I don't know I don't know if the holdup is on the Steelers end or his end. I would guess that the Steelers aren't offering him multi-year for between 7 and 8 million, if I had to take a guess, but I don't know that for sure. And I don't know if it's still on the table based off what they've done. I would like to think that there still is room for an addition to that wide receiver room prior to the draft. Now, if they were to add a Tyler Boyd or really anybody else in free agency, I would say that eliminates the idea of them double dipping in the draft at receiver, because I thought that that's been on the table, but I wouldn't think that it is if they do that. But yeah, as of now, when I look at this receiver room, I see a fringe 1, wide receiver 2 type in George Pickens, and I see a bunch of guys that are wide receiver 4s on the roster right now, and fully acknowledging that in Arthur Smith's offense, not a high volume passing offense, and not an offense that we've seen receivers be particularly productive outside of the number 1 target. And like Pat Freiermuth is obviously part of this passing game too. So could he be considered more so the wide receiver 2 than anybody else that we've mentioned? Sure. But I still think that there needs to be more. There needs to be something else in that room. And I don't know. I don't even necessarily want to bring this up, but like the long-term future of George Pickens too. Like, it's not like he's going into year 3. Are we so sure that he is going to be a Steeler long-term? I don't know. There's a lot of questions to me about this room right now.
I'm going to read you the wide receiver room on a depth chart that is according to ESPN right now, and see if just reading the names out: George Pickens, Van Jefferson, Calvin Austin. That's your starting 3. And then Quez, Watkins, Denzel Mim, and Dez Fitzpatrick. And
Marquez Callaway is on the roster.
Marquez Callaway is also on the depth chart, along with Deuce Watts and Keelhan Harris. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
But Cordarelle Patterson is listed as a running back on here. But the point is, are you serious? Like, do you feel comfortable going into the season with that? And I'm not asking you specifically. It's kind of just a rhetoric question for everybody listening. But like,
you can ask me specifically. No,
I do not. I think that you're crazy if you think that's the case. And even these guys plus a draftee, there's no way that I feel comfortable with that going into the season. I feel like you need at least one more solidified starter.
It is, I will say, it is going to depend a lot for me on who it is that they get in the draft, because while I don't view any of those guys as a typical, like a solid wide receiver 3 for most offenses, in the typical Arthur Smith offense, I think a guy like that, it probably is wide receiver 3. Again, because you're also including Pat Freiermuth as a receiving option. Like, whether it is, Van Jefferson, Quez Watkins, Calvin Austin, whoever comes out of that as the number 1 option amongst them as a wide receiver 3, I see the vision to a degree, but that means you better get somebody that I really like at 51 in the draft, that I feel like can contribute right now and in the future.
And your run game better be pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. Right. By the way, like, if I'm making a prediction right now, not saying like this specific pick is where he's going to be taken, Ricky Pearsall is going to be a Steeler. That's my prediction. Like, overall for the draft, is Ricky Pearsall's going to be a Steeler.
Okay.
I know that they love him. I mean, everything that I've heard, the interest has been there. He's their type. He could play inside and out, more so in the slot, but I think he could play on the outside. I
mean, you would think that that'd have to be at 51, right? Like, I don't think he would make it to 83.
But I'm like, I don't necessarily think I wouldn't lock the Steelers into picks at 20 and 51. I think there could be some type of movement there.
Trade back?
Trade up from 51.
Yeah, you could trade up from 51. That's true. Anytime people bring up trade back, I love that people want to entertain the idea. We talk about the Steelers trading back for go 6 years on this podcast. It never happens. Like, at least not in the early rounds. It never happens.
Even if they have a history of doing it, it's hard to predict, just because like it takes 2 to tango. Like, the idea of trading back and getting more day 2 capital is always going to be enticing. It's enticing for every team, but you got to have a specific player on the board. Like, so people are like, trade back. Why wouldn't 19 be looking to trade back as well? The Rams at 19. Like, why would it specifically have to be 20 that a team was trading to get a player? I don't know. So the situation has to work out perfectly. There has to be a willing team to come up and get a specific player. There's a lot of moving parts that go into it. But yeah, in theory, I agree. Trading back from 20 to like 27 with the Cardinals or something like that. Beautiful. I love the idea of it. Getting another
Their trade back this time was trading Kenny Pickett. They traded their first round quarterback for a day 2 pick in this year's draft.
Yeah, to move up from 120 to 98. But yeah, I mean, I do think that pick is going to be somebody that is going to be needed immediately, by the way, that pick 98, when you look at the state of the roster right now. Heck, that could be the receiver for all we know, depending on how things shake out. So
yeah,
I don't know. I'm interested to see how this whole thing plays out. I don't know that I have much else on Steelers. It's been a quiet.
I mean, the only one is that we have probably our quarterback room filled out for the season. Kyle Allen is our quarterback 3.
Also, like not to pat myself on the back. How random was it that I
knew you were going to toot your own
Allen?
horn. I knew it.
I specifically said, and like I didn't even realize that happened, but somebody messaged me and was like, "Didn't you specifically say Kyle Allen as the QB3 on the last episode of Afternoon Drive?" So I went back and watched it, and I was like, and it was because I was thinking about Josh Dobbs coming back as QB3, but then he signed with San Fran. So then I was like on Spotrac looking at who's free agents, and I was like, "Oh, Kyle Allen. That can make sense as a QB3." And then they signed Kyle Allen. So Kyle Allen coming in. He's a guy that's played. It's funny that they brought in Mitch Trubisky after he backed up Josh Allen in Buffalo, and now they're bringing in another Josh Allen backup from Buffalo when they need a QB3 on the roster. This
at least this one's not going to start right away.
Yeah,
hopefully
at all. Things would be pretty. Things went south in 2024 if we're watching Kyle Allen play this year. But I do think that this probably takes them out of drafting one of the mid rounds, like we've talked about. Like, I don't think that Spencer Rattler, or I would even say Jordan Travis, Joe Milton, I don't think those guys are in play. They could add a UDFA, but I think this probably increases the chance of them bringing in like a Trace McSorley or something that was QB4 for them last year as their practice squad guy.
Charlie, throw it on a dime. Wearing number 9. Yeah, I agree with that. I was actually just thinking in my head. I was like, I think that this gets rid of like a Chris Oludekun situation where you just take a QB late just to take one, and then he doesn't even make the roster. I think that gets rid of the situation.
That just capped off. You're just an absolutely awful draft. I know that they got George Pickens.
Yeah,
I get that. Who were the other picks in that class? Kenny, George, DeMarvin Leal.
Calvin Austin.
Calvin, who I would not speak very highly of that pick.
I know they had 2 7th-round picks that year, and Chris Oludekun was one of them.
Oh, Presley, right? Or was that... No, Presley was the year before.
Let's see. So they had Kenny, George, DeMarvin Leal, Calvin Austin. They had Connor Hayward, Mark Robinson, and Chris Oludekun.
Okay. Yeah.
So you got traded to the Eagles.
If
your wide receiver 1 right now, a tweener who isn't living up to the expectation, a guy who hasn't seen a guy who is probably your wide receiver 3 as of right now, but you don't want him to be, a solid player in Connor Hayward, a guy who can't touch the field because the linebacker room hates him in Mark Robinson, and Chris Oludekun, who's a 2-time Super Bowl champion on the Kansas City Chiefs.
I mean, if Connor Hayward's your second best pick, that class,
Connor Hayward is definitely your second best pick.
Yeah.
Like by far. He's had production.
Kevin Colbert, man. What were you cooking those last few years, pal?
Man.
It was bad.
Looking at the 22 to 23 draft is like night and day. Broderick Jones, Joey Porter Jr., Keanu Benton, Darnell Washington, Nick Herbig, Corey Trice, Spencer Anderson.
Yep.
Colbert was on that pack, man.
Ever since 17, really.
But yeah, Kyle Allen, I think the quarterback room is finished. I think it's done. They put the bow on top of it. I
would agree.
And you know, the sinister thoughts in my head said, you know, there's a realistic, or not, it's not impossible, but it's improbable that Russell Wilson or Justin Fields could be so bad that you get to Kyle Allen. It's not impossible. It's just improbable.
I hope it's impossible. Yeah, I don't have anything else. This is a shorter Steelers episode than normal. And it was funny because we had a longer Pirates episode than normal because of opening day. Just a reminder, less than a month until the NFL draft. We've been talking a lot about the draft on this episode, and we will be right here live for the first 2 days of the NFL draft. We're not going to be here for day 3. 4 through 7, sorry. You can watch it on your own. We will not be here for a live stream, but we will be here rounds 1, 2, and 3, April 25th and 26th. Very excited for it. We'll be here live about 15 minutes before the draft kicks off. We learned our lesson. I think we got it down pat now in terms of the time. The first year we did this, we went live like half hour, 45 minutes or something before the draft started. But then you have like 20 to 30 minutes before a pick is made. So we've kind of got the timing down pat now. We know when to go live and just have a little bit of space there. Ton of giveaways. Going to be doing at least 3 Steelers jerseys, Steelers tickets, around the 412 merch, which we talked about from Everything Custom Designs. Couple shirts from Game Changers. You guys have seen me. I'm actually wearing a Pat McAfee Game Changers shirt right now. Awesome designs. I'll let you guys pick what you want in terms of that. If you do win, and the Terry Bradshaw Funko Pop also will be part of that. I don't think I'm missing anything, and it's all going to be determined. I'm not going to pick it up right now, but I put up a picture of it. I got a prize wheel now specifically for this thing that I'm very excited to debut during the draft. It's going to be me, Sarge, Joe, Drew. We'll see who else pops in, if anybody else. Tyler, TBD. He's on the, we'll see what Tyler's availability is like. He will be in Europe.
I'll say bonjour to everybody when I pop in.
There we go. So, going to be a bunch of prizes, ton of friends. It's always a blast. Giveaways. And Mid Kuiper Jr. will definitely be here. It's for some portion of the show. I already got my outfit picked out. Very excited about this year. I try to one-up myself every single year. I will say there was an addition this year that I did not have last year, and I'll leave it at that. A little bit of a teaser for you guys.
Can't wait, brother.
Oh, my God. Okay. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell on here. Hit us in the comments with any thoughts, questions. We want to know what you guys think about everything that we talked about, the additions to the receiver room, where you think the Steelers are going to go in the draft as we sit here about a month out. Leave us a 5-star review if you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from. Follow us everywhere at Around the 412. Check out our sponsor if you're watching on YouTube. Above, Tyler, Keach Barbershop. Keach Barbershop, Christian, Tony. Yes, Tyler was pointing to it so graciously there. It also goes across the bottom with the ticker. Keach Barbershop, 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Again, that's 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Go get your haircut there. Old school vibe. You won't want to go anywhere else after that. And our friend Haley Wagner, Everything Custom Designs. That link is in the description wherever you're watching or listening to the show. This has been the Around the 412 Steelers show. Be sure to check out Pirates or Penguins if you guys are into that thing. If not, we'll talk to you guys next week on here. Until then,